What is happening, my good people of Earth? Today I'm just going to be giving you some quick tips to save you time, money and effort when it comes to vape. And the main reason that people end up back on cigarettes after using a vape device, not a disposable, but using a proper vape device, is just the hassle that's associated with it. You can't encounter problems and don't know how to deal with them, don't know how to solve those problems. It seems complicated because it's new information to you, but I promise it's not as complicated as it seems at first. The first thing, if you get a proper device, is going to be to prime that coil properly, to saturate it before going anywhere near pressing the fire button. The coil itself is basically just cotton with metal on the inside. If you press the fire button, when the cotton is dry, the coil will burn. You have to saturate it first. The simplest way to do so, that was a long sentence without taking a breath. Simplest way to do so is just put the coil inside, fill it up, leave it to saturate for 10 minutes or so. Don't go anywhere near the fire button. Ideally have the device turned off first, so if you do accidentally press it, it's not going to suddenly burn the coil, because literally one little press is all it takes and it will burn your coil if it is dry. Even if you put it in, fill it up, leave it for 30 seconds, it's not enough time for the juice to pass through into the center, and it will burn. Tip number 2, why is it so harsh? Yes, most people end up going for the wrong strength of nicotine, especially if you buy it online and you can't actually ask anyone first or talk to anyone about what you should get. Start low, work your way up. It's about replacing the amount of cigarettes that you actually smoke, replacing the nicotine from those cigarettes with an equivalent amount that you're getting from a vape. You've got regular nicotine and salt nicotine. Most people prefer salt nicotine because it doesn't get harsher as it gets stronger. But if what you want is that throat hit, then you're going to want a regular nicotine. But if you want more nicotine, but you want it to be less harsh on your throat, then you're going to want to go for a salt nicotine. Do different vapes take different kind of juice? Yes. Now, if you get a big cloud, you are going to want thick juice. And if you have a small cloud, you're going to want runny juice. That's a loose rule, but generally the smaller vapes with the higher resistance coils. Don't worry about what the resistance really is, but higher resistance coils want runnier juice, and higher resistance coils are normally what come in more mouth to lung style device. So mouth to lung being like when you smoke a cigarette, into your mouth and then down into your lungs. And direct lung is straight down into your lungs and then straight out again. Direct lung will give you bigger clouds, and bigger clouds require thicker juice. If you've heard VG-PG ratio, anyone talking about that, the VG is the thicker one, and the more of that you have, the thicker the juice is and the thicker the clouds will be. It doesn't really work if you swap them over. If you put runny juice in a cloud chucking vape, it's going to be very leaky and spitty because of how runny that juice is, and it's made for the thick juice, and vice versa. It's not going to process quickly enough because it's made for the runny juice with the smaller devices. If you put the thick juice in there, it's not going to pass through into the center fast enough as you're vaping it, and you will essentially unsaturate the center of the coil because it can't take the juice in fast enough, and it's going to burn dry, and it's going to be horrible, and it's going to burn the coil, and it's going to taste absolutely horrible, and you're not really going to know why, and that is why. Tip number 3 or 4, don't buy disposables. It's just a money pit at the end of the day. Disposables have a purpose, and for getting people off cigarettes that are unwilling to dip a toe into the water of how vapes work, it fits those people perfectly. But if you've used one and you know that it works for you, why waste your money on disposables? They are finite at the end of the day. Literally, if you imagine every disposable you've ever bought, most people, even if that's just 5 or 10, that's somewhere in the region of £60 to £120 on average. Maybe if you get them for a good price, £40 to £80. But that's an insane amount of money which you could have bought many regular, decent setups with, and all the supplies it comes with. Tip number 4 or 5, whichever one this happens to be, is you don't have to spend too much money on a device. People think spending 50, 60, 70 quid on a device and a full setup is better than spending 20, 30 quid on a device. It depends what you want it to do. If you want something for chucking clouds, there is stuff within all price brackets. If you want something for mouth to lung, more cigarette style, there is still stuff in all price brackets, but it's more a little bit cheaper. Generally speaking, there are of course going to be exceptions to this rule, but I often liken it to headphones. It's that diminishing returns threshold is about 20 quid. Anything more than that, 20, 30 quid, you're going to get something that's better, but it's not going to have anywhere near as much of a difference between the 10 to 20 pound range as there is from the 30 to 40 pound range. The optimal sweet spot, I would say, is under 35, maybe 40 quid across pretty much all boards. Now, your first device, yes, you may want to buy a more inexpensive, a less expensive one in the start. But if you are then going to spend 30 quid on a starter device and then 50 quid on a better device, and you've spent 80 quid altogether, you may have been better to just not go for the starter device and spend a little bit more in the short term and not have spent all that much in the long run, which is why you want to ideally try and educate yourself a little bit before you actually end up getting a device. Talk to a vape shop. You don't need to buy anything from them there and then. Make it clear when you go in that what you're looking for is information before you're looking to make a purchase, because you want to make sure that you've weighed all of your options thoroughly, because otherwise you're just going to be throwing money at something and hoping that it works for you in the long run. If you have any questions, by all means message me on Instagram. There's quite a lot of elements to this video that I hope have been simplified enough to make it nice and easy for most people to understand, but let me know if you have any more questions. Thank you very much, and I will see you soon.